Okay, so today I am identifying a plant species. I went around the garden and found one that I didn't know, and I've taken a cutting of that, and that is this. It also had a flower which I've slightly dissected, but was tubular. Looks a bit like that. So I already have a guess of what genus this is. I think it's probably a Coria, just based on how it looks and how it feels. But to start us off, I'll just say that it's located at 426 Rocky Gully Road, Vandermeer, which is in the New England region of New South Wales, and it gets very cold during winter with frosts essentially every night, but they can be down to 10 degrees, minus 10 degrees pretty regularly. So I know this plant will have a very good frost tolerance. The soils are also very poor. They're a loamy sand and have a pH of about 5.5, so pretty acidic. So based on these features, this plant will be quite hardy to both frost and to poor soil conditions. And the soil is very well drained. Despite it having relatively high rainfall, it's quite a dry environment, so it'll most likely be drought tolerant as well. Now this plant appears to be about 40 centimetres by 40 centimetres. It's been recently trimmed though. It's balled up at the moment. It's also quite a juvenile plant. I think it's only been in the ground for about 2 years at this point, so it definitely could have a bit more growing to happen. Now, just to go through the growth habit and things like that, the growth habit of this plant is a compact round bush. It's probably a woody perennial shrub, and it's just a few quick features that are identifiable on it. It has a leaf arrangement that is opposite, and tactile wise it's rough to the touch, especially on the bottom side, but also on the top side of the leaves, especially on the younger leaves. It's also rough to the touch on the stem and on the little flower bud that's just here. And the flower, just to have a quick look at it, I have dissected this one a little bit, but we'll get the point. It's tubular or bell-shaped, more tubular than bell-shaped, especially before I dissected it. It has 4 petals, and it has the little filaments with the anthers, the yellow anther on top there. There are 8 of the anthers, 8 filaments, 8 anthers, and the 4 petals, so that's a pretty good start with identifying what it is. It's also should be noted that it's light pink right the way up to the leaf, right the way up to the petal tip, whereas I know some Corias change colour along the petal length. The petals, or the whole flower itself, is about 2 centimetres long. It's next to my finger here, and sensory wise it's rough to the touch, but it has a smell, quite a distinct smell, but not something that I recognise explicitly. I can't just say, oh, that's lavender or something like that. It's almost citrusy, but we'll look into that further. Now the bush itself, I'll include some photos of it. It's quite young, like I said, but it's in very good health. So there's nothing that I can't see a health condition and say, oh, that's very common with this type of plant or anything like that. It's a healthy, been pretty quick growing kind of plant that doesn't seem to have any kind of deficiencies or any health problems. Going forward from here, I will use a plant key online to help me identify what this plant is, and the one that I'll use is the plant net. I'll attach a link to that in the assignment. So I'll jump in at the family because I'm sure it's an angiosperm, and I'm pretty certain that it's a dicot because of the vein structure within the leaves. It's evergreen, it's a shrub. There's just a few signs here that say that it's a dicot, and if I'm guessing that it's a Coria, that's in the family of the Rutaceae, and so I'll jump in there and see if everything's lining up. If it's not, I can always take it back a step and start somewhere else. So I've gone through the key system online, and what I found along the way is that I was correct, it is a coria. It looks like a coria, and corias have quite distinct appearances, so I thought I'd be right in that. And when you sort of click through a key like that, you go from family into genus of coria, and from that genus there's only 11 types of corias that are native to Australia, or well, in the world there's only 11 kinds. So it's pretty quick to click through this particular one, which was really handy. But the separation for what species it was going forward from coria was that it has a rough underside of the leaf, but also a rough top side of the leaf rather than a smooth top. So that took me into the coria reflexa, and then having done a bit more research on other sites as well as the key, and looking at the colour of this petal, I think this plant is probably a crossbreed between the coria reflexa and the coria pucella. Sorry about the pronunciation, and that's and then it's the cultivar dusky bells, which is a really common kind of coria in Australia. It's super widely planted and would definitely survive in the conditions that it's growing in here, which is a really good sign that that is what this plant is. So based on the size and colour of this plant and the colour of the flowers and the foliage type and some of its features, I would say this plant is definitely a coria dusky bells, and that makes a lot of sense for where it's growing and its hardiness.